Hello everyone, Sandrak here. In today's video, I'll be showing you how to build the character Beidou. I released my Xingqiu video first, and this is my Beidou video. I will be working on a video for Xinyan, however, it will take me a little bit longer as I've never played the character really seriously, so it'll take me a while to get used to her kit and understanding her mechanics. But before we get started, I'm new to YouTube. If you like the content, please consider subscribing. Your subscription will help me along in growing my channel. So regarding Beidou, her name pronunciation is Beidou, so Beidou is close enough in terms of English approximation. Her name means the North Star in Chinese, or basically meaning Polaris, but in Chinese it is also the symbol of death, and it is normally called the Death Star, not to confuse with the Star Wars. So there are generally two ways to play Beidou. If you really like her, you can play her as a main DPS. She does have the capability for that. And also the other common way is to play her as a sub-field DPS. Swap her in, does a bit of her parry to charge up for her ultimate, releases her ultimate, and then swaps off the field. I'll be talking about both ways of playing her, however, I will be mainly focusing on the sub DPS as that is generally the more optimized way to play her. So the other question to answer before we get started is how you build her, Electro or physical. I would say it actually depends. If you're building a sub DPS Beidou, I would say of course Electro is better. Most of the hints are given. You do ascend with electro damage bonus, and in one of your constellations you even convert a portion of your physical damage into electro damage. So basically, if you're unsure how you want to play her in the future, building electro will not hurt. However, if you like Beidou and you want to play her as a main DPS, I would recommend to swap a portion of your electro damage into physical damage, because you will be doing a lot more charge and normal attacks with that physical damage, where the physical damage bonus can kick in. And the ways I would recommend swapping is not to swap the goblet, but say for example, you can use a physical damage bonus substats weapon, or you can use the 2-piece from 2-piece Bloodstained or 2-piece Pale Flames to cover up for that slight increase in physical damage, so you get the benefits of both worlds. With that out of the way, let's talk a bit about her kit. Her normal attack is very straightforward, 5 consecutive strikes. The attacks are, in my opinion, one of the coolest attack patterns in Genshin at the point, because she actually kicks her sword on the 4th strike, but that is personal opinion. Her plunge attack is the same, however her charge attack is a little different. She doesn't swing in full circles like Noelle and Razor, but her charge attack is like Diluc. She swings just forward, so it is more useful if you're trying to only attack the forward enemies. However, the radius is a little larger than you look. She does cover pretty much the front 180 degrees. Her elemental skill is the only parry currently in the game that you can do. Basically what it does is when you press it, it just immediately parries. There's no parry, she just immediately swings her sword around, dealing electro damage. However, if you hold it, she will be able to block out attacks using her claymore as a shield, and then if you parry at the correct time, the background will kind of dims. You all know what I mean, because you will be able to, when you parry correctly, you will know because the background dims. And then when you parry, you do electro damage, and if you parry correctly at the correct time, you do extra damage. Now, a trick to how to parry at the correct time is to give Beidou a shield and make her stand on top of grass that has been lighted up by fire. In this case, the shield is always taking damage from the fire, making her almost getting attacked all the time, so that she will of course always do a perfect parry. If you're someone who likes to perfect parry but doesn't want to train with timing, that is a quick way to do it. Now there's one thing also to note is that when she is holding her parry, it technically counts as a shield, and the shield does have a hidden HP, which is based off Beidou's max HP. So don't go hold the entire duration of the parry thinking that you will not get attacked, because eventually, especially at stronger level enemies, they will be able to break through your shield and you will get hit. Now moving on to her elemental burst, which is a very interesting one. It's essentially a damage plus a shield at the same time. However, it does take a few constellations to unlock the shield part. So let's just talk about the base form. So It's similar to Xingqiu's Q. So basically what happens is she summons two sort of lightning dragons that follows her around. And whenever you normal and charge attack, these dragons will move onto enemies, and when they're near enemies, they do lightning discharge, which is similar to chain lightning for some damage, and then it is allowed to maximum rotate between two enemies, so it can only affect one enemy at a time per second. However, there's also a constellation that increases the number of enemies they can get affected by, essentially boosting her damage for her ultimate. The other thing about her ultimate is like Xingqiu's ultimate, her ultimate does cost 80 energy, but unlike Xingqiu, you cannot really use the sacrificial greatsword on her because it is not the best weapon in slot for her, because she does need to do some normal attack damage. So building her energy recharge becomes a very big focus of getting around the problem. But there is also another way to get around the problem, which I'll mention later. Now for her first passive, as I've said before, when you use her E to parry at the precise moment, it will grant maximum damage bonus. You will know when you parried at the precise moment, the sky will dim for a bit after you parry. Her second passive allows you to do more damage after unleashing her ultimate, essentially gives you more DPS window. And her third passive gives you stamina bonus when swimming, and I believe currently she is the only character that does that. But again, of course, you can just use Kai to ice bridge everywhere, so I don't know how useful it is, but it should be useful in everyday overworld exploration because not everyone has Kaya built. Moving on to her artifacts, currently I have 2-piece Gladiator, 2-piece Thunder and Fury, which is the overall best build for a sub DPS Beidou. However, if you are building her purely with a team that focuses on Electro Charge, which is a reaction caused by Hydro and Electro and deals electro damage and also spreads onto nearby enemies, in that case I would highly recommend the 4-piece Thunder's user. Let me see if I have any sets left. In that case, I would highly recommend the 4-piece Thunder's user for only the 4-piece effect, which essentially increases her damage by 35% at all times because chain lightning spreads around enemies, so by the time you hit, most enemies will probably be affected by Electro. Now, if you want to build her more as a main DPS, I would suggest swap out the 2-piece Gladiator for another 2-piece that gives physical damage bonus. So both the Bloodstained Chivalry, which gives 25% physical damage bonus, or the 2-piece Pale Flames, which also gives physical damage bonus by 25% would work. However, I do not recommend using the 4-piece Pale Flames because her elemental skill does cost 6 seconds, which makes it impossible for the Pale Flames to stack up unless you use the sacrificial greatsword. But even in that case, the stacking up is not consistent. Moving on to her weapons, the choices are there are quite a few choices for her. So currently I'm using the Serpent Spine, which is the Battle Pass weapon. It is very good because of the passives. The passive is awesome. And also on top of that, the base attack is quite high. And also on top of that, the crit rate gives me some ability to stack on crit damage for her artifacts build. Of course, Wolf's Gravestone, if you have your hands on that. Basically, any 5-star weapon is good on her. Wolf's Gravestone is, of course, the best. Sons of Broken Spines would work on her as well. And I believe the passive works with her quite well because 20 seconds of downtime for Beidou does not sound like a long time to me, given that her ultimate takes a while to charge. And also the other 5-star, which Skyward Spine, is good on her because of the Vacuum Blades, and also on top of that, the Energy Recharge substats does help her with dealing some damage. Generally, I would say any 5-star weapon, generally I would say any 4-star Claymore is good on her with the exception of White Blind. Because of the defense, so you do not want to build that. This is specifically the weapon for Noelle. Only use Snow Tomb Star Silver if you're building her as a physical DPS or as a main DPS where you do need to do some physical damage. Otherwise, the physical damage substats is wasted, which is why if you're crafting, I would recommend the Prototype Archaic, which has the more safer attack substats, even though it doesn't boost damage but as much as the physical. However, you can use her either way on any sort of builds. The Rain Slasher might be good in the future because the Elemental Mastery will be getting buffed in 1.6. The rates will increase when dealing bonus damage to reactions. However, currently we don't know the exact numbers, so with that out of the way, we cannot really say whether the weapon is good, will be good in the future. But however, the weapon is not good at the moment, so I would not recommend investing on Rain Slasher until the thing has confirmed. If you want to build her now, I would recommend investing on Archaic as the safer choice, and if you have Battle Weapon, Battle Pass, Serpent Spine as the safe choice as well. Sacrificial Sword is okay, again for the energy recharge substats and the passive. However, I couldn't find a time where she would need to parry 2 times back to back. So, because normally after parry you would like to follow up with a few normal attacks before parrying again. So, plus parry itself takes a while to wait for the enemy to attack, so the instant refresh is not very helpful. As for 3-star weapons, I do have that one disenchanted, but the best 3-star weapon for her is the Debate Club. However, I do not recommend boosting 3-star weapons past level 50, so you could think about transitioning to a 4-star weapon very soon. And again, these two are completely free to play. These 3 are completely free to play choices, and out of those 3, this one is the safest build. Moving on to her constellations, I currently have her C3, I want her C6, but it will take a while. So the constellations I would recommend are C1, C2, and C4. C6 is okay, but it doesn't grant as much of a spike, so there's no need to specifically go for C6. For C1, it gives the shield for her ultimate, which makes her very helpful. The shield is actually very strong. Of course, it's not strong as Zhongli's shield, however, Beidou does have an okay amount of HP, especially if you're building her. It is likely that you will end up with a few artifact substats rolled into HP, which will make her quite good. It also gives her the ability to play as a shielder for the team, which allows her for more, which allows you to essentially lose up one spot for another character. C2 boosts her ultimate damage, allows the lightning to jump between 2 additional targets. Originally it can only jump between 2 targets, and now it should be able to jump between 4 targets. So it does increase some damage. However, it still has the caveat of 1 second per tick, so it doesn't boost her damage that much. It just gives her more viability when playing with multiple and when fighting with multiple enemies. Whereas before C2, she is more of a duelist who likes to fight 1 or 2 enemies at best. C3 and C5 boost the level of her E and her Q respectively, so I'll not be mentioning that. 4 is an interesting constellation. It gives her normal attack the chance to do electro damage, which is very helpful if you're playing her main DPS. However, if you're playing her sub DPS, it can also be it will not be as useful because you will not be attacking as often. And also it works against the passive of the Serpent Spine, because this requires you to not take damage to get more, and this requires you to take damage to get more damage. However, probably not everyone has Serpent Spine, so if you do not have Serpent Spine, this one will have more value than if you are using Serpent Spine on her. Her C6 decreases Electro res, which is helpful if you're building a double Electro team. However, other than that, it does not really contribute to a huge amount of damage, which is why I do not recommend to go for as a specific constellation. However, if you happen to have C6, it is very good for your overall damage. Now moving on to her team comps, there is generally 2 ways to build her. I'll be focusing on the sub DPS team comp because I've not played her as a main DPS like ever, so I will not be the best person to recommend those team comps. Of course, there's probably a Beidou main subreddit where you can probably look up her team comps as a main DPS. So for her sub-team comps, there's generally a few school of thought you can follow. The first one is, of course, pair her with Fischl. Fischl acts as a battery for her to charge up her ultimate. In this case, she is more play as a sub-DPS than a support, but it is fine because she does have the ability to play as a sub-DPS quite well. So one thing to know for this comp is that you do not need as much energy recharge, so you can focus more on the attack. The second school of thought is to pair her up with a Hydro person like Child, Xingqiu, or even Barbara, just for that applying wet so she can target multiple enemies with Chain Lightning. In this case, she does need quite a bit more energy recharge to build up her kit. However, if that is the case, you also don't require much damage from him. Because Chain Lightning will be creating a lot of damage on itself. So it mostly depends on how you build. And the third one is you want to pair her up as the sub DPS of a cryo main physical main DPS like Eula. Essentially, this comp is currently only used for Eula. To an extent, Changyun if you main in Changyun. However, again, I'm not sure how Changyun and Kaya mains work, so that is out of my territory. However, for Eula mains, I did do some research on that. If that is the case, you can either bring Fischl or not bring Fischl. If you not bring Fischl, you want to stack a lot of energy recharge on her to get her ultimate going for Eula to proc Superconduct at all times. And if you bring Fischl, it essentially becomes the firework team for Child, except you're swapping out Child for Eula. So essentially you're having Eula, Beidou, Fischl, and you can bring another utility support, like personally my best is Xingqiu, because then it allows Superconduct, Electro Charged, Shatter, Frozen, all in one combo, and you can switch those characters really fast to get those going all the time. And another one to pair is Zhongli for the shield. So you will have Eula, Zhongli, Beidou, and Fischl for the Superconduct and the shield, and Zhongli further provides more electro res decrease and physical res decrease for Eula. And if you're playing Beidou as a main DPS, I guess you can pair her up with someone like Changyun, Rosaria, or even Chi-Chi for that Superconduct to get it going. However, I believe if you're playing Beidou mainly as a physical DPS, I would actually recommend looking to Razor, because Razor ascends with physical DPS. So he is probably the better candidate if you just want to play physical DPS. The last thing I want to talk about is the difference between Beidou and Razor. Generally speaking, Beidou has a lower damage floor and a higher damage ceiling. It depends a lot on how you practice your parry and how you counter attack and stuff like that. So if you're someone who likes to play more risky, if you're someone who likes to show off your play skills, go play Beidou. Whereas if you're someone who wants a more consistent damage, Razor is probably a better option. Of course, if you have Eula, go for Eula, not Razor. And the other thing about Beidou and Razor is that if you want a sub DPS, Beidou is a better option, whereas if you want a physical DPS, Razor is the best option. That is all the information I have for you today. Thank you very much for watching. If you like the content, again, please consider subscribing. Thank you and have a nice day.